more streamlined, BA process and that kind of thing to help with delivery and timing and everything like that.
Okay, okay. And what would you say? Would the scope of the position be more so coming from the business analysis side with some Salesforce administration? Would you say that?
I think that's a piece of it. So there's some level of Salesforce administration. We also have a full, development team. So a lot of the BA work is kind of working with them to map out technical requirements and working with the business to make sure that those business requirements are met with those technical requirements, right? Um, a lot of UAT validating that the test scripts are correct and that the QA teams following through, and then ongoing support and other things like that. We also have third party softwares that we leverage that are integrated into the platform. So managing some of those, helping configuration, knowledge of those other platforms is kind of part of it as well.
Okay, okay, okay. Um, what would you say would be the learning curve of the position and the expectations within, the first 60 days, first 6 months, things of that nature?
Yeah, so I think if you haven't worked in financial services, there's probably a decent learning curve just on as far as like terminology and what people are talking about and how the business works. I mean, it's basically sales at the end of the day, so you'll kind of catch on. But I think, within the first 6 months, we'd like to see like integration of the team, being able to kind of start to work some stories, help out with UAT and working together. But like I said, it's super collaborative. So I think we'd help with that a lot to get you up to speed relatively quickly without, unrealistic expectations, I guess.
Okay, okay, okay. I don't have any questions right off the bat. I think I'll save some.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I kind of covered the position, but like I said, there's major need for just all sorts of VA work on our team. So if it's documentation on the back end or getting user stories and requirements documented on the front end, there's all sorts of different projects going on. We also have a lot of data, so we're building out these data feeds with our various vendors to kind of integrate into our. So we also use AWS in the back end for all of our APIs, and we have uh, a data feed repository that sucks data in from like carriers or other third party things and passes it into Salesforce. So we have kind of a
Okay.
large ongoing data management, data validation, data integrity project as well. That's kind of ongoing. So there's probably a lot of work there. But with that said, do you want to kind of just run us through what you've been doing and your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I come from a primarily infrastructure desktop support background. In the earlier 2000s, from 2012 on to 2016, I was familiar with leading a lot of different projects here in the Twin Cities. Um, the Windows XP to 20 or the Windows X from XP to the Windows 7 migration, as you guys all have, probably experienced in your lifetime. I worked with AIG, Travelers Insurance, the Department of Urban Development, Blue Cross Blue Shield, pretty much all of the Windows 7 migrations, Minco Products, which was a manufacturing site. That was my first migration. Doing desktop support. And pretty much using SCCM to deploy applications and also the base image. Um, the first time I had a team lead role was with AIG. We were based out here in Oakdale, Minnesota. I live in Maplewood right now, but it's right down the street. And
Mm-hmm.
so eventually I created a depot for New York so people were able to ship their SSD hard drives and their laptops. And we became one of the top deployment sites in North America at AIG. I eventually went over to TCS, Tata. If anybody buys a burger or if you drive a car in India, they have something to do with it. They're one of the largest managed service companies in the world. I worked with Cargill and also Boston Scientific on some projects, Convo projects, some executive support projects as well. As my career started to increase, I became a Citrix administrator for a small business in St. Paul called Syntax. Um, Pretty much they were one of the leading forces when it comes to managed services in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin, primarily with federal contracts, heavy in the state and manufacturing and small medium businesses doing VDI support, Zen app and desktop. I was pretty much the frontline support for that. The interesting part of my career is during that time, I started going to speak with children at Metro State University, supporting the Microsoft Imagine Academy. There was supposed to be an instructor. I would wake up in the morning on Saturday morning and go over to Energy Park Drive. I'd have my sugar-free McDonald's iced coffee with extra cream, and I would go and I would talk to kids, and I'd bring some of my friends that I helped get jobs before, like I might know a Cisco engineer or a guy that's in Splunk, somebody that's heavily versed in Wireshark, and showing them, how Team Viewer works and things of that nature. So I did that for about maybe 6 months or so, maybe almost a year. And then I was asked by the Osiris organization, which is a nonprofit in the Twin Cities, to write a curriculum for adults for the MTA 98366 exam. Um, I did that for about 7 years. I got 300 people certified and hired. So my job was pretty much to take IT professionals, train them. You had groups of anywhere between 5 to 20 people each class. I brought in Robert Half. I brought in Tech Systems. I had some contacts out in Edina at the Microsoft Data Center, showing them the difference between having physical resources, and then you go over there to the hard drive right now, all you see is just a big window. There's absolutely nothing, no physical resources unless it's a bunch of boxes. It's all in the cloud. So I brought two groups out there at the Microsoft Data Center. What I ended up doing is, my first presentation, I had Tech Systems come in, and they basically were kind of hiring people right on the spot at the Minneapolis Park Board. And so I worked with the Urban League to try to get people hired out there. Um, and then, eventually, I was asked to join Hiawatha Academies, which was a charter school. That was kind of a BA Salesforce position where I was the liaison in between, the network support team. So you may have some teachers or some principals that might have questions on how to feed certain sources from the Salesforce instance to Tableau. We had a data source with Infinite Campus. If you have children, you know that Infinite Campus is pretty much one of the leading educational systems when it comes to, attendance, classes. You might have some students where they say they get prorated lunch. I think that's the term. Um, Infinite Campus pretty much tells everything about the student and the parent. They were a data driven organization, so that data feeds into the Salesforce instance, and then that feeds into Tableau. So I was kind of responsible for giving permissions if somebody wanted a specific Tableau workbook or Tableau um, visualization. After that, I worked on a contract with a company called Flywheel. If you ever had the terrible experience of 30 minutes under the MRI X-ray machine, we pretty much supported the back end as a software as a service company for. Uh, if you have an MRI, you would have this format called DICOM or PACS, and what they would do is they could run what they call these artificial intelligence gears to get critical information to doctors and university professors easier and faster. That was my first introduction to working with Kubernetes um, in an agile and Scrum environment. And after that, I started getting into API support. Worked at Wells Fargo, a contract with them, and pretty much Wells Fargo had what they call the gateway program. So it was like pretty much like a mini startup inside of uh, Wells Fargo. Whether you buy a car, you want to wire $30 million, we were the team that worked with the software developers, and pretty much frontline support, working with onboarding the Treasury Department, and pretty much almost like a level one, level two tier support for the software developers. They might have a question about public key infrastructure. They might have a question about how to uh, do you want to use Python to integrate a piece of the gateway product. Um, and then after that, I worked pretty much being like the ServiceNow team lead for uh, Optum UHG. Uh, if you guys ever heard of, well, I'm quite sure if y'all in Minnesota, you heard of my chart. Optum United Health Group purchased like a my chart um, copycat, and so
Yeah.
we were pretty much standing that up and being like the back end API support using Insomnia and Postman. My primary position was pretty much, creating the dashboards and filtering out, the tickets, and assigning those to the team. It was kind of like of a team, 60% team lead job, 40%, support. Not so much as the front end of user support, more so on the back end because we would have certain tasks in ServiceNow, and we might work with Jira, opening up a ticket with Jira, um, tracking tickets, doing root cause analysis with Splunk logs. And right now, at the moment, that contract ended January 31st. So, at the moment, I'm studying for my Cisco CCNA certification and my Intune 365. There should be a class about that coming soon. So that's kind of been my career.
Awesome. Sounds like you worked on a lot of cool projects. So as far as, we do more software, right, than IT. How do you feel about, working more with the business side on gathering their feedback and details and kind of, I guess it's sort of similar to service, but maybe a little less on the bug front and more on like new features and planning and strategy. How do you feel about that as part of the role?
I think I could be comfortable with that. When I was at Flywheel, being that was a software as a service company, I kind of worked alongside pretty much the full life cycle. Um, we did have sprints, I believe. They call them user stories. At that time I really didn't know too much about it, but we used Jira, um, not just for merge requests dealing with GitLab and Terraform, but we use that to create stories for the software developers. For example, let's say there's an issue where I'm trying to upload a file via FTP or in the command line. That might be a bug. So I created a lot of bug enhancements in Jira. I've also done that working as a business system analyst at Wells Fargo, um, being the liaison between IT and the business, so to say. They had kind of an agile environment at the charter school, Hiawatha Academies. We would
Hmm.
have pretty much maybe 2 3 meetings a week, so they operated under kind of an agile scrum kind of methodology, even though it was an
Yeah.
actual charter school.
Hmm. That makes sense. And so in that one, what was their Salesforce like? Did they have a lot of custom stuff designed? Did you guys help with managing that at all? And how do you feel
Yeah.
about like Salesforce administration in general?
Well, I haven't touched Salesforce in a while, but I would be able, I had to look into the workflows, and I had, had sandboxes that I could play with in, in Lightning and Classic. And the thing about that is, we had a program called Form Assembly, because as I was earlier saying, they had, um let's say you're a parent or you're a teacher, they would have these quarterly or semester based surveys on what kind of support that you were getting. So those fed into Salesforce. Then we had another piece of software. I can't remember the name, but I was pretty much the front end support for that as well, because although I didn't really change it, it was a managed service company that pretty much bonded um, with the Salesforce instance. So if you're going to hire somebody, it was some kind of video program where they send you a link and then you do a virtual interview. Like it'll ask you questions. So that was like a customized piece of the Salesforce instance. I had to work with that. Sometimes people wanted modifications because it's a charter school. They were very limited with funds. So sometimes I might say, well, hey, can you cut us a deal on this? Or is there a feature within our managed service package? If it's not too much of a jump, does that cover the platinum plan or whatever they may have?
Absolutely. Yes. It sounds like you have, you're comfortable working with vendors and potentially, our own development teams as well. Um, how do you feel about that in general, working with software developers, one on one kind of testing what they're doing, holding them accountable, that kind of thing.
That's something I could definitely do. I work with software developers, more from them asking questions on what kind of features we have when it comes to onboarding and implementation. When I was at Wells Fargo, but I did also work with some of the software developers when I was at Flywheel, and yeah, I think I could be comfortable doing that.
Cool. How do you feel about financial services in general? I know it's not the most exciting industry necessarily.
What? It's great.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I will say this. Um, when I had a 401k account at one point, and at that point we were using Empower. And what I will say is I do like the customer support because you're dealing with numbers. You can't really argue that.
Mm.
So some people might think it's dry, but it's easier for me to call Empower than to call the car, not the car insurance, but to call the um health insurance. There's all kinds
Right.
of extra bells and whistles and stuff like that, and it just seemed like when I call Empower, they just said, okay, these are the rules and these are the rules. Like, they might have a little wiggle room on this and that, but for the most part, they say, well, hey, if you got questions about taxes, I could just give you kind of the bare minimum, but we legally can't give you information on 401k. You're gonna have to talk to a tax professional. So, I thought that was kind of
Right.
interesting.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a lot of numbers and a lot of, data too. Like on the well side, we have daily transactions for all the accounts. So there's tons of big data to work with and all that kind of cool analysis.
And the nice part is that, like, the wealth part of it was kind of the hardest piece for me to learn, but it's also not the same every day. There's kind of new things that come up all the time. So you're always kind of seeing new scenarios, being able to analyze new scenarios and learn new stuff. So it's constantly keeping you on your toes.
And I like to, the thing about me, I like to talk to people. With me being a technical trainer, I was able to, pretty much juggle different hats. Uh, at one point, I kind of opted myself as a PM. I was trying to simulate the environment as much as I could. So, I told my students, I said, you guys aren't students anymore. You're now IT professionals. And so I said, I'm just gonna be the jerk PM that just pings you randomly. And so they're like, well, okay, well, all these emails you're giving me is not working. I said, okay, I got to do something different. So then I downloaded Slack. Teams was kind of janky. Teams, they're still working out the works of Teams. You guys know, yeah, you guys. That's why you're laughing because Teams has been kind of, Microsoft is still working Teams out. So what I did is I had everybody install Slack. They had like the home personal version, and they
Mhm.
said, well, this is a lot easier. I said, so now you can work autonomously. Everybody, if they have a question, if I have to post a job, I don't have to send it and email it to people. That was getting very cumbersome. So what I did is I said, well, if you have questions about anything, let's all just put it in the chat, and that way everybody can kind of build on. And I noticed once I implemented Slack versus just having emails initially and spreadsheets and all that stuff, I noticed people started passing their certification exams quicker.
Yeah.
Because if somebody had a question, they didn't have to wait until somebody else said, well, copy and paste and all of that. So
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, to that point too, with all of your experience teaching, there's obviously a lot of need on our end to do demos and build out more of our training materials for our users and then kind of communicate that to the business, that kind of thing. So it sounds like that'd be something you're interested in, right? But
yeah, yeah, yeah. I like, even though I don't really instruct anymore, I still get people to call me, and so I've done mock interviews with folks and everything, and I still kind of have that edge, to kind of instruct. You don't really lose it. you know
right.
um so I do like talking to people. I'm not afraid of large groups. I'm not a shy guy. I was one of the I would I was trying to figure out a way on how to communicate, to some of the students when it comes to like WAN and IPv6 and IPsec, and dealing with VPNs and things of that nature. And I just said, all right, we just gonna get rid of the book, and we just gonna go Game of Thrones. There's a bunch of students that like Game of Thrones. I said, okay, so we're just gonna talk about House Stark and King's Landing, and then that's how we're going to kind of look at the network. And
Really.
That's another thing. Analogies, stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I use that all the time when talking to the business.
King,
Um,
Game of Thrones.
all just analogies in
Oh, okay,
general.
okay, okay.
Sometimes Game of Thrones, though. Yeah,
You should
our
steal that
team
one.
loves Game of Thrones. Yeah.
You should steal it. They'll be surprised. They'll
Um,
like it.
cool. We're kind of getting close to the end, but I wanted to
Okay.
give you. So, what do you want to do, or what do you see your kind of career over the next few years, and what are your goals, or what are you looking for out of a job?
I'm kind of looking at, somewhere where, someone's providing state-of-the-art customer service. Uh, more so anything, I would like to kind of get into project management. As I was doing these last positions as a business system analyst, I did want to kind of get more into that BA role where I'm, not having to necessarily always have to dig deep into actually the break fix, but as to the why.
Right.
Can this be a little better? Why isn't this working, and why do we need it? I mean, you might have something where you say, well, let's just strip this down, this is trash. I mean, sometimes you have to do that when you don't tell the client it's trash, but I'm just saying,
Right.
like, so sometimes it's some things, I guess you just got to get rid of them, or uh you got to kind of open up some holes and look at it from a different lens. So maybe like a product owner, product manager. I think that's a distinction without a difference, but maybe getting into that. That's kind of where I foresee my career going.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely opportunity for that here. That's basically what we're doing. So that sounds awesome. Tammy, did you have any other questions?
I was just curious about, you had asked about the culture. So what type of work environment, day to day are you looking for? We're mostly half in office, so we're kind of expecting that as well from our
Uh,
BA.
I've been working remotely for the past couple years, but I'm definitely open to a hybrid environment. I knew coming in, I guess from the description, I don't know if ZipRecruiter was detailed, but they said it's 100% on site. I said, well, I'm okay with that. That'll get me out the house. Uh, the kind of environment I like is kind of an open, ego-free environment where everybody has a voice. I've worked independently before, but I also can work collaboratively on a team. Teamwork makes the dream work. Um, I do like a culture that's kind of humorous. We can work hard and play hard at the same time. Especially when you're thinking about numbers. You end up getting a little dry. You might have to have a shot of Bacardi here and there. But yeah. So I mean, I like an environment where I would say mostly steel sharpens steel, where we could kind of rub ideas off of each other, and nobody's afraid to raise their hand. I know, and you guys probably have had this in your career where you've been in situations where people are afraid to speak their mind and bring their self to work because they might think that, well, that might not be a good idea. And I think it's important to foster an environment as such.
Yeah, I think we definitely are striving for that here. I mean, I think we have fun together, but also, you know, I subscribe to that same philosophy. I'd rather find out about issues or potential problems or ideas sooner rather than find out after we're in production and now we didn't think of something right. So I don't want people to ever be afraid to contradict me. I know I'm not always right, and no one is. So I think collaboration is probably the
Hold on,
big
can you
key
say that
to
again? I need to
successful.
record it.
But yeah, collaboration to me is just like I said, everyone should kind of own what they're working on, but feel like they
Uh-huh.
can get support from everyone on the team to ultimately deliver. You know, we're all judged together at the end of the day on what we deliver for the business. So it's a
And
team
I
for
think we
sure.
do have that too. I think it's a good, we do have a really great team. We all work really well together, and we're trying to find someone that can, fit into that with us. So,
And Ms. Warren, you mentioned something about uh, you said like half there. You have people that are working. Some of them work remote as well.
Well, I'm not making that decision, but most of our office is actually in 100% of the time.
Okay.
We do have a few one-offs and flexibility. So, if you need to be home, that's,
Yeah.
doable. But yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Well, I
Yeah,
was gonna
because
say, so we have kind of, you know, loose hybrid. So some people work 3 days in the office, some work five. It's kind of what you want. We just want some time in office for meetings and stuff like that. But we also have, like I said, we're a national company, right? So a part of our team is also fully remote in, like, there's 5 people that are fully remote that don't live in Minnesota, basically, that we inherited as kind of legacy team. So
Yeah.
it's a mix of hybrid and remote. And then our headquarters are in New Jersey. So our my boss sits in New Jersey, basically.
oh, okay. So avoid them big New York taxes.
Yeah.
No, I was just wondering. I just figured I said, okay, we might get You ever seen what was that tomorrow? Is that Tomorrow Never Dies? No, that's James
Oh, I
Bond.
have to see
You know that movie where
Day,
all the snow.
day after tomorrow, I
Day
think.
after tomorrow. I was like, okay, what if we get
Yeah.
25 inches of snow?
Yeah, no, we're definitely flexible, and
Uh,
everything we do is digital, right? I mean, we're a tech team, so like you said, we do the chats, we use Jira, everything is tracked, and so yeah, we don't have an issue with remote flexibility or anything like that, really.
I did have just just maybe one or two more. I'm not going to keep it too long. One or two more
Yeah,
technical
go
questions.
for it.
Um, when it comes to what would you say the learning curve of your internal proprietary software will be in regards to this position? And I guess speaking into Salesforce, because I've seen Salesforce uh in terms of like modification of the rules and administration of that.
Yeah, so as far as Salesforce itself, I mean, we'll give you access to all of the training and stuff, and we actually would cover like certification if you want to do the admin certification track. We can cover that as well. I would say it's maybe, I mean, with your experience to do the Salesforce admins, maybe a month, couple months. It's not crazy hard. As far as Spark is what we call our proprietary app, it's a mix of Salesforce and like we use Lambda in AWS for backend processing, so that's all in Python.
Okay.
Um, so learning about how AWS works and all that might be a learning curve, but that's not necessarily like a requirement. Like a lot of our developers kind of handle the architecture piece of things. Um, but as far as just the business use cases of Spark, I would say that's probably, I don't know, Tammy, 6 month learning curve, just because there's kind of a lot of complex like advisors that we support that do different custom things. So it's just kind of
Mhm.
understanding all those use cases, I think takes a little bit of time. But technologically, it's a combination of Salesforce and AWS essentially with some other third party apps like DocuSign and uh, Manga and some other things.
Okay, okay. And how soon are you guys looking to have someone or I guess the question is what would be the next steps from here?
Yeah, so I think we'll want to do like an in person interview. I'll probably bring in our architect to development team just to meet with you, and then you can meet some of the other people on the team. And then from there we make a decision. I think so. We're looking to hire two people for this role, and we have a couple other roles, but we're trying to move relatively quickly. So I would think we'd want to wrap this up by the end of July. Is my gut. But I think we'd probably schedule a follow up next week or the following week if you're available.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure that if that's the case, I'll clear my availability, and take that trek out to Bloomington.
Um,
Might even stop by the Mall of America afterwards. You guys
Gotta
are on
do it.
American. You guys are on American Boulevard, right?
yeah, right kind of by the Tria there, if you know where that
Okay.
is.
Let me think.
And we have like a lot of free snacks and waters and stuff in our office, so that's a
Oh,
cool
and I
plus.
and I, and I will take part in that coffee because I know you got it.
Oh yeah.
Got it. All the good stuff, fancy stuff.
I've been having this running debate with a friend of mine. He said, well, university is between University and American Boulevard. And I said, American Boulevard is longer than you think. University might have you, by because University goes all the way into Central. And if you guys ever ate at Big Marinas in Columbia Heights, some of the best Greek food ever. Uh, but American Boulevard, you don't want to walk American Boulevard
Yeah, no,
in 85-degree weather. It's not happening.
no, for sure. All right,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, I think we got another call to jump to, but
Okay.
it was great to meet you. I think we'll be following up soon, like I said, for kind of an in-person meet, and we'll take it from there. But
Well,
let
most
me know if any questions come up or anything. In the meantime, shoot me an email.
will do. Will
Happy
do.
to.
I really appreciate you guys' time. Looking forward to continue the conversation. Hopefully we'll see each other.
Nice to meet you,
Awesome.
Derek.
Sounds good. Nice to meet
Thank you.
you.
Thank
Thank you. Take
you.
care.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Well, quick little analysis of that. Let me take off my little carpal tunnel gloves. Initially, it started off a little dry. I was a little like, I don't know. But then, you got to work that personality in there. Throwing them little Game of Thrones, throwing, little stuff. Talk about the location. You hit them with the weather. You talk, you work your sorcery a little bit. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get me a haircut. This ain't happening. This ain't working.